Well Rooted is brought to you by Gerard and Associates CPAs. With locations throughout Los Angeles, Gerard and Associates has been guiding entrepreneurs and creatives towards realizing their dreams for over 20 years. Discover how they can support your vision at gerardcpa.com. Hey, it's Hani, and welcome to another episode of Well Rooted. Today I am joined by Hani Almadhoun. Hani is the Senior Director of Philanthropy for UNRWA USA, and he is the founder of Gaza Soup Kitchen. This is the conversation you need to listen to before making your next donation or your zakat donation this Ramadan. Hani's story and the grassroots movement he's created for the people of Gaza is a story you don't want to miss. So without further ado, please welcome Hani to Well Rooted. Well, Hani Almadhoun, welcome to Well Rooted. It's a pleasure to have you today. You are the Senior Director of Philanthropy for UNRWA, and you are the founder of Gaza Soup Kitchen. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Haneen, and having this conversation with me. And what a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. I mean, we spoke last week, and I feel within that time frame, last week till today, we so much has changed in the world in just that time frame. And I guess I'll start there, because as of the beginning of March, all of the border crossings to Gaza have officially been closed. And I'm curious to know how that is affecting, Gaza Soup Kitchen at the moment and all of the other NGOs that are trying to make a difference there.
Yeah, absolutely. When we set up this call, the borders were open, and then a day or two they're closed, and now we're having a conversation. I believe they slowly promised to open them. I think they may have seen some food yesterday come in. The immediate impact was felt right away in the frenzy. Remember, there is a snowstorm here. All the grocery store finished. Gaza, they just came off a very terrible famine, a few times actually, a few cycles of famine, but the last one was pretty brutal. And people started looking for food to buy, and all of a sudden, sugar, all the sweet things disappeared from the market, and the prices went up by immediately by 25%. That meant if you do food distributions like the Gaza Soup Kitchen does, the meals, the kitchens were not instantly impacted because, we could get food to cook still, and we don't want to suspend operations like so many other groups do. And nobody wants to suspend that. Just the conditions make it harder for people to operate. But what was impacted is our food parcel distribution. So we went from 2,700 food parcels delivered daily to practically zero for 2 days.
Okay.
And then we were able to bring it up to about 700, I think, yesterday, and now 1,100. So we're working up to our number to deliver food parcels for families. And, but we also were thinking, do we need to add more hot kitchens? Because people don't have food, then they may need to come to the kitchen. Other NGOs were impacted, but remember, Israel is not allowing as much aid to begin with. So
Right.
a lot of NGOs did not feel it right away. Israel does allow, what they do allow is commercial trucks. So stuff for sale at the supermarket, sure. But remember, in Gaza, nobody worked in 2.5 years. And, where they going to bring the money to buy stuff at the supermarket? And if you were going to send them money, there is no bank to send the money to.
Mm-hmm.
And these things have not gone away, even with the promise of the one-sided ceasefire that has not worked.
Yeah, that's a great point because we are well into a one-sided ceasefire, as you just called it. They're, contrary to what many people do believe here, I think in the West, there is, in fact, no ceasefire for the people of Gaza. Um, and you guys have continued to operate. And you've mentioned to me that you are the only NGO that has never closed up shop. You guys have just consistently been sending out meals and feeding the people of Gaza. And what's most important, I think, is it's a grassroots movement, right? It's the people of Gaza feeding the people of Gaza, which I believe is it the only NGO that is doing that, that is led by the Gazans?
Look, there's a few other smaller initiatives that we love and respect. We do not want to pretend we are the only solution, but we have a scale, at
Hmm.
the Gaza Soup Kitchen. It's unfortunate. I wanted to come to this program to talk about my great work at UNRWA USA, UNRWA USA, but the Gaza Soup Kitchen was born because Israel would not allow the existing humanitarian NGOs to work and deliver service to North Gaza, where my family happened to be, and my friends. So we really had to hack it and figure out a million ways, little small miracles to get money to Gaza and to buy zucchinis, overgrown zucchinis, or buy carrots, potatoes, or forage. Days with my brother would go near the danger zone, which is practically all Gaza,
Hmm.
and just grab some common mallow or purslane from near the fences. And, we take it back. My mom would clean it and then cook for the community. Organizations like the Gaza Soup Kitchen stand as a monument for the failure of humanity. And, I wish we didn't have to exist because, there's organizations who can deliver a million food parcel to families like UNRWA, but that hasn't been happening because Israel is not allowing it. On top of targeting existing NGOs and actually murdering more than 400 humanitarian workers in Gaza, including my brother Mahmoud, who was killed because he wanted to get food to Kamal Adwan Hospital. And the hospital was being starved, and the people there were basically bombed left and right. And when he wanted to go deliver the fourth batch of fresh produce delivered by an ambulance, an Israeli drone waited for him as he left the house, walked maybe 40 yards, 40 feet, and then he was targeted. And that's even when that happened, I think our kitchens did not stop, and I couldn't dictate to my family who ran the kitchen because, understand one of the limitations is sending money to Gaza. And the first thing they look, Hani Almadhoun, sending money to Omar Almadhoun, his dad, it's okay. But if I'm sending to somebody with a different last name, it wouldn't really work. So that's how we succeeded to do this, working with the families. And we hired shopkeepers, people who are teachers who just had the hustle. That was the key. This is not a salaried position. This is like, hey, we need you to hustle to bring food, to bring water, and the best people who could hustle and show entrepreneurship and solving these problems that Israel creates were the ones who stuck around and created the Gaza Soup Kitchen. We started as a one kitchen, and it's sad to say we have now 15 kitchens. Yes, professionally, that's a success, but it's a
Right.
failure for humanity that people actually must have a hot kitchen instead of having a home. Kitchens are gone. Where are people going to cook? Water is a challenge. You're in a tent. We have family members who got burned in their tents just as recently as 2 weeks ago
Wow.
from the open fire. A lot of heartbreak, Haneen, and I want people to relate to these tiny details that do matter for the Palestinians in Gaza.
No, it definitely matters. I remember hearing about your brother's story, Mahmoud. Allah yarhamu. I remember watching the videos about it, and I feel like you've been able to create this legacy with him and carry it on, in his honor as well, and in the honor of all Gazans that have lost so much. Um, and as I'm listening to you and you're talking about the ingenuity and the innovative creativity of the people in Gaza, I can't help but feel, well, here on Well Rooted, we talk a lot about narrative sovereignty and like building systems that work for us and um and being the ones that are really building for our communities. And I feel like that's such a great testament to not only narrative sovereignty but also to the Palestinian spirit and as well to the aim of obtaining food sovereignty. You talk about foraging the food yourselves by any means necessary, putting food on the table essentially for the people of Gaza. And that just, I think, also depicts like a real strong connection to the land as well, which is really at the heart of every Palestinian story. I want to ask you because you talked about how a lot of like donations, it seems like food donations are not being allowed in, but food for sale is being allowed in. A lot of international NGOs are not being allowed in, and organizations are not being allowed in, and that's kind of why, like for example, Gaza Soup Kitchen has had to come about. And we've also seen over time how like a lot of international journalists have not been allowed into Gaza as well. And we're starting to see this double standard now, where they are being allowed in Tel Aviv and they are being allowed in other parts of Israel. Do you feel that people are understanding, especially here in the diaspora, as someone who knows Gaza well, who's made all sacrifices, in Gaza that you wish you didn't have to make? Do you feel like here in the diaspora, we actually have a good grasp on the imbalances that are happening in terms of Palestinian society and Israeli society? Do we, from what you've learned and from the people you've spoken to, do you feel like we understand the gravity of the situation for the people of Gaza?
Uh, uh, Absolutely. I tell you, just to go back to your point, the kitchens over the Gaza soup kitchen do not close, not because like we're defiant, which we are, but because the people who work there wouldn't eat if they don't cook. So you cook for the family. It's like having a cookout or a day for the community. And if you do not cook, you're not gonna eat. So
Right.
that's why we call ourselves the last pot to stop boiling, the last, kitchen to close or the last door to close, especially. And this is not like in Gaza City. Every single NGO left Gaza City in September when Israel was bombing the place just last September. And the Gaza Soup Kitchen was one organization that refused to leave because a man and his wife, Baha and Ala, made sure that they continued to deliver food parcels discreetly every day to 100 families in Gaza. The Red Cross left Gaza City. These two, we told them, here is money so you can get out of Gaza. We do not want you to be harmed. And they said, nope, we're doing this. And now they work in our kitchen. It could have been a very sad story if they were targeted, like we've seen that happen in our family. I tell Baha and Ala, you guys will have jobs as long as the Gaza soup kitchen, because they were really heroes. The bombs were around them, above them, everywhere, and they still would deliver food to people. I'm filled with joy to know that there are people like that. Now, in the diaspora, not getting the full picture, I do think there is a huge level of solidarity. And oftentimes people care so much about Gaza that they may not make a space to center Palestinian voices because from Gaza, like you go to an event, a night for Palestine, zero Palestinians in stage. But that's in their mind because they're so close to Gaza, to Palestine. They're always talking about it. They think I do not have to have a voice from Gaza or a voice from Palestine in the panel. So we try to push people to be inclusive with Palestinian voices. And then sometimes we want the Ghazawi to be brave and innovative and all that stuff, but it's okay for a Ghazawi to be worried and scared and cowardly, even. We do not make space for those. And it seems that the only ones we celebrate and lift up are the dead ones. And there are very boring people who do important jobs in Gaza that deserve our support, our care, and love. But overall, this is not just an issue of Arab, Palestinian, Muslimin. I'm telling you, I'm blessed to stay in a place at UNRWA USA where massive support from churches, from synagogues, from people who have nothing to do with Palestine, who are just farmers even. They want to support because you cannot unsee the crimes and the brutality in Gaza. You could buy the TV network, you could buy TikTok, but people still cut through this. We've seen at elections where they spend millions of dollars against a candidate who was sympathetic and very supportive of Palestinians, only to be reminded that votes triumph money. And
Mhm.
that's the call to action. Yes, support your favorite charity like the Gaza Soup Kitchen, like my friends at the Go Project Hope, at Hope Humanitarian. I name these because they're volunteer run. Gaza
Right.
showed us that there are people, unfortunately, who will grift of Gaza. I like organizations that have been transparent about this. And I happen to be working for an organization that is the largest humanitarian actor inside Gaza. But when that was restricted, my team was behind me when we created the Gaza Soup Kitchen. It's separate, it's a
From the
different
UNRWA.
organization,
Yeah.
but the team showed up for me when I was doing some other important stuff for Gaza. And that's why the solidarity with the people matters. And it's really not limited to our people. I love our community. I've traveled many places. I've spoken to a lot of people about Gaza, and I've learned about the collective power we have. But yeah,
That's a really great point. I'd like to hear a little bit about the work you do with UNRWA as well. You are the director of philanthropy there. Can you run us a little bit about your role and what it is that you do and how they are still able, if they're able to work right now? Because you did mention that they're not operating in Gaza.
Oh, they are. They are
Oh,
operating. So think about there are many layers to any organization. There are the food boxes allowed into Gaza. Israel is not allowing those to many actors. Some people are getting boxes, some NGOs, but those NGOs have to be given Israel silence, meaning you cannot be calling out Israeli atrocities and expect them to let your boxes and food in. So
okay.
that's where you have a lot of complicit actors who may have access to Gaza, but in the exchange for silence and not criticizing Israel. So that's one. UNRWA does have programs in Gaza, so the education program is still running. It's bringing it up, not the 400,000 kids, but I think there's 60,000 kids are back in some learning centers. Medical visits, UNRWA clinics see about 15,000 patients a day. Think about this. I mean, 15,000 patients every day, they go to UNRWA's doctors and nurses for care. That's not impacted by borders closing and opening. Obviously, medicine is. That's we're
Right.
running into some issues like that. We have a situation where Israel is allowing Nutella jars into Gaza, but not antibiotics and not blood supplies, not equipments. Because this is the optics. They want you to see somebody in Gaza who has a store like, hey, come buy a jar of Nutella from me. But you do not see the invisible struggle where somebody needs glasses or gluten
Yeah.
allergy or all of these things. And then, so UNRWA does those programs. And here is the good thing we're doing in Ramadan and around this is cash assistance. So remember, I told you that the trucks are allowed if they're commercial for sale.
Hmm.
So Israel is not allowing the much of the aid. Some aid gets in, but this is a way to hack the system and give people cash so they could buy their food themselves. It's about $400 per family. About 58 families are queued for this program. In the West Bank, this program is also happening, about $560 per family. In Syria, for Palestine refugees, there's $100 cash assistance one time only. The priority is given for women-led household. This is a thing in Gaza. And what's even more devastating is children-headed household, where everybody's gone and the child is really in charge of the whatever remaining of their household. So some of these things UNRWA USA is able to do, but I also want to tell people, just be smart about your giving. Ask questions. It's okay. We've seen a lot of things. We've seen people who focus in marketing more than the programs, where they have organizations with marketing shops that spend millions of dollars, and sometimes the money doesn't reach Gaza. Sometimes they can't bring it to Gaza. It is also about taking risk. If they shut out the banks, what risks did you take to get food to Gaza? What did you learn? Were you in Gaza before October 7th, or is it just the flavor of the month? Are you gonna stay there? Are the headlines, when the headlines leave, will you leave too? The
Right.
cameras are not there. So a lot of these things people need to be asking their charities.
Yeah. And to your point earlier, there was a major story that came about a couple weeks ago within the Palestinian community and like the pro-Palestine community, where a very popular content creator, I would call him, came under fire for embezzling, it seems like $2 million of people's donations into a personal project that was not serving the people of Gaza as was marketed to the donators. Um, how can people, I think people lost a lot of trust, and they continue to lose trust whenever they hear stories like that. I mean, $2 million, I guess, compared like the way that some people were rationalizing it and trying to support that, were basically saying, well, the 7 or 8 million still got donated, but $2 million is a lot of money, and it could make and break, a lot of people in Gaza that need it the most. What should people be looking out for as someone who has vast experience in this now? What should they be searching for? What questions should people be asking to ensure that their money is going to the people that need it the most?
I think one of the things that people need to always think about transparency, right? I get the salary from UNRWA USA. It's published, the 990. People can see how much money I make. If an influencer is hired, you need to be transparent and told like, hey, this is a paid partnership. I'm getting this. People, it's okay. Like if you
Right.
say this organization is gonna give me $1 million if I do this, and people can make their choices, right?
Hmm.
Some of these things get in from the shady area, the unethical area to the illegal territory. I don't, the particular of that case keeps changing per day. It is, everybody on this side of the conversation wants the money to reach the community.
Right.
Donors trust you with that fund to give it to the community, not for a pet project, not
Right.
for another thing. This is for the people. So people need to ask things about, you know, who's getting the money, the mechanism of the donations. How are you getting money to Gaza? What have you done recently in Gaza? Here's another one where like somebody did 6 months ago and they're raising money now. No, khalas, people need help now. What are you doing now? The other one we learned, we have a ship in Cyprus. We have a truck in Jordan. We have a container in Egypt. Guess what? They're irrelevant. If the stuff is not inside Gaza, it doesn't help anyone. So the point is, I want to say is what are you doing inside Gaza right now? And take my donation, right? The other
Right.
one is, are you doing the work yourself? There's a lot of charities that raise money and then boom, here's $500,000. They give it to X organization, X gives it to Y. So the 500,000
It
goes
gets
less and less
filtered.
and less.
Yeah.
And, I tell you, most people who work at the NGOs are great people. They're underpaid, they work hard, and they do not deserve a lot of the rage. Sometimes the leadership is disconnected. Unfortunately, in our space, there is a sense of competition where people just make up phantom numbers so they can justify bonuses or high rewards, or in some cases, they so this is to acknowledge that donor trust is really low, and we need to earn it again as charities. That's why at UNRWA USA we're doing 100% for the Zakat fund, meaning if we receive $100 from a donor, it will be $100 in the hand of somebody in Gaza. There is nothing in between. There is nothing, and guess what? And the money, especially for Zakat, is kept in a Islamic compliant bank, Safwa Bank, I think it's in Jordan, to make sure the money continues to be zakat compliant and we're not doing riba. So that's one thing we offer because
Okay.
our community wants deserve to see this, and it's also cash. So we're not doing programs, we're not doing funny math, and not that we do, but this
Okay.
is to really just tell people give with confidence that your gift will be delivered. And that's sort of like the model I use at the Gaza Soup Kitchen. I'm a volunteer. This is my office where I receive the mail. And we have the only two expenses in the US that we have to pay, and you would appreciate is we have a bookkeeper to make sure our money is tight, about $400 a month, I think, $400. And then we have an insurance for the board to make sure anybody who's crazy want to sue us because we support Gaza, we have some protection. That's just about it. There is no other expenses. It doesn't mean that expenses are bad. It just means that, hey, we love what we want to do. I do it in memory of my brothers who were murdered, Majid, Awalshi, and then Mahmoud. But then eventually we may have to either get out of this business because I do not want to build a kingdom or another not-for-profit. There is too many of those shops. Or two, have somebody to do the help because it's a lot of work. And if you don't love it and if you're not good at it, it's going to really put you in a difficult spot. And remember, you're working with a traumatized population. So when I tell you we helped 25 families, 25,000 families in the first 10 days of Ramadan, that's really great for a small team, for a small organization, but it's not 300,000 families that in Gaza that they need help. So the people who do not receive the help, they're gonna not have an amazing opinion of the Gaza soup kitchen because everybody's traumatized. And we see it, we acknowledge it, and you understand that, oftentimes what they've suffered, you could get away with anything almost. But it is hard work. I have to acknowledge that.
Yeah. No, I can totally see how over time there can be burnout as well, as you said, for yourself. And from what I know, or from what I've gathered, is I'm assuming every day you're constantly checking in with the people that you work with in Gaza. and
Every hour.
every hour, and it's like around the clock. It's kind of it consumes you. I'm sure it consumes your life. Which what an honor to be able to give so much to Gaza. But yeah, yeah. I mean, you're also you play many roles, and you wear many hats.
I'm married, I have my kids, and I'm not showing up for them the way I want to. But
Of course.
sometimes this work can be addictive because, like, nobody's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, no, you need this is more important than getting a child a meal in Gaza." And it's it's a lot. It's demanding. It has a lot of things, but also risky. The environment where we operate in. Somebody is like, "Oh my gosh, you're getting money to Gaza." So there is always that fear and the worry, and you think we should be getting an award for solving the problem to the best of our ability. But I promise you, the world is not fair to us Palestinians, and I hope we see justice, not just in the afterlife, if there ever one, but also in this one as well.
Yeah, and also, this is a testament to your capabilities as well. I want to know a little bit about who you were prior to Gaza Soup Kitchen, because for you to be able to jump in and really take this as far, I mean, I believe you said you guys fed over 11 million people last year. Is that correct? I mean, just to really expand in this way, you have the wherewithal to do it, clearly. What was your story prior to Gaza Soup Kitchen?
So actually, I was visiting Gaza with the family in the summer of 2023, and we left Gaza in August 2023. So we saw Gaza in peak bloom. We just loved the infrastructure there, the vibe, everything, and it felt like, wow, this is coming together really well. And then we leave. A few weeks later, the atrocities happen. I came to DC as an intern. I worked at ADC for a while, the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. The internship became a job. I got a master's, and then I came back to DC. In school, you never know, like, hey, I'm gonna be in California and I'm gonna make it happen. It doesn't just, the job takes you there,
Hmm.
and it's easy to move around. And I'm somebody who lives out in Northern Virginia. I love the work we're doing. UNRWA USA is more of a calling for me because my grandfather worked for UNRWA in Gaza. My dad is a teacher at UNRWA, and now I felt like I'm continuing that legacy. And it's been good because you honestly channel the rage people have, because this is the big crisis in Gaza, the genocide. But
Right.
prior to that, there was some wars, there was some casualties, we've lost family and all that. And you've gotten some training in how to handle those crises, unfortunately. But nobody was prepared for this horror.
Hmm.
And we started the Gaza Soup Kitchen when instantly after I saw a video of my sister Samah trying to bake bread from animal feed. Somebody told me grind this rabbit food and it will be like bread. And she said it smells so bad, even the cat they had refused to eat it. And that landed with me. By then, I had lost my brother Majid and his family, his wife Safa, Iman, daughter, Suwar, Omar, and Ali, who was 7 years old and he loved to dance. And then they've abducted my brother Mahmoud. They showed him in his boxers, paraded him like an animal circus. And then a week later or so, I see a video of my sister doing this. And meanwhile, here in the US, speaking of solidarity, Venmo and Zelle, people were sending me money to go help. And guess what? The banks are offline. How do you figure this one out? So many Palestinian businesses like foreign exchange shops, Sarrafin, they stepped in and helped us get some money there. But it wasn't alone. Like, it was my sister Niveen, who has always been a mystery in our family, like the
Hmm.
wild card. Like, we don't know if she found her niche in life. And then this happens, and then she's honestly broke through the siege of Gaza through some links and PayPal connections and Amazon she did. So we felt like she got her moment. And because she opened that highway to send in money, to buy food, to buy water, we were able to deliver for the community. Started in Mashrou' Beit Lahia, very north of Gaza, and then expanded into Gaza and other areas. And right now we have 15 kitchens from Beit Lahia in the north until Khan Yunis in the south. We do have some presence in Rafah. There is a sliver of Rafah that the Palestinians can access. It's still in the coast and in Beit Lahia. And it's a lot. We've taken over the YMCA. There is a sport field that became a distribution center, and that speaks about the Palestinian solidarity, Muslim, Christian, we're all being genocided, and that was really heartwarming to see. And the human level, when our team first day went to the YMCA and met with the Christian Palestinians, Gaza is different than the West Bank because the presence of the Christian Palestinians is very small, maybe 600 families. And my niece, May, this is the first time she meets a Christian Palestinian, and she came back and she said, Hadola Zaina.
Yeah.
I thought, what did you think? And it was very innocent. She's a teen. And she said, and she thought that they have special way that they receive help. And the people told her, we eat from a can like you. And it brought the community together in a human way. You don't think about this because it's all diversity around us.
Right.
Even in the West Bank, the villages are connected. But in Gaza, the interactions are very limited, and that was
Mm.
very eye-opening for us.
Yeah, I remember I never even knew Christians were in Gaza until I was actually in Kuwait, and I was living there as an adult for a couple years, and I ended up working for a Palestinian from Gaza who was Christian, and that was the first time I ever learned that there was a Christian community from Gaza. So I think it's like a kept secret, for most of the world who doesn't actually know any until you've met them.
Yeah, absolutely. There
Yeah.
are at least three churches in Gaza. In fact, one of them was suffered major damage, and we had an Eastern Christmas celebration for the few Palestinians who showed up. However, the pastor said, anybody who comes after 7 p.m., I'm not going to open the church for them because he wanted to keep his flock safe. And we're here. We're going to continue to do this work. We opened a learning center for orphans. It has about 25 kids now. It's going to have 50 after Ramadan. We're going to do double shifts. We have a medical point that is the most north you can go. The three hospitals, nobody can get to them in Gaza, in north of Gaza. Remember the Indonesian hospital?
Mhm.
Boom, it's in the yellow line. Al-Auda Hospital, yellow line. Kamal Adwan, nobody dares to go there because that's essentially a few meters away. That's where the yellow line begins. So these are the major hospitals that are not there. So we just basically opened the medical point with Dr. Nihad and Nurse Ahmed, who see about 80 people a day. The
Wow.
average urgent care center in the US sees 40 to 50 people. This is essentially a glorified tent, and they provide life-saving medicine. About once a month, an Israeli quadcopter, well, they do that daily, but at the medical point, we see once a month somebody who's been shot and brought in for first aid, and then we ship him to the hospital. There's two cases where we've almost lost these people for mundane injuries to the foot, but because of the doctor, they had heroic and the supplies we have, we were able to have two more Palestinians in the world alive because of the support we get. It's very involved. Started with me and my brother, and then my mom. Now we have 100 staff. Half of them I don't know. I have not met in life, but I know that they work hard. It's also managing a community that's in a pressure cooker, and it wears you. You have issues you don't think about and needs, and I told my messenger, Meta Facebook Messenger, because of all the floodgate of messages, and I used to keep up with them, but my heart just every day it feels like, hey, punch me, punch me, punch me. And I'm trying to stay functioning and to keep and focus that I can help only 25,000 families this Ramadan.
Right.
And I want to make sure I get to them and I give them a good experience. I'm going to expand. By the end of maybe next week, we'll add 5,000 more families to the list. But also, we underestimate the value of mental health because we're in a public space where everybody has an opinion. We put a registration link online, somebody doesn't get to register, then they're gonna be tagging me and calling me stuff, and I almost a day later they're like, Hani, I'm so sorry, I don't know what I was thinking. Oh, I am having a bad day, I'm sorry. And you have to be that sponge. A
Yeah.
lot of people in Gaza would really like just say like Hani Hamar, Hani this, Hani. And then wallahi, a day later, they're like, I'm sorry, and they put a public apology. And it's a lot.
It's a
And we
lot.
try to do what we can, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, from their side, it's a normal human reaction to their, to their situation, and but that doesn't make it any easier on you. And having to sort of lead this initiative takes a toll. And as they say, even though it's very cliche, you can't pour from an empty cup. So we, as Arab society in general, don't put a lot of emphasis on mental health, but it is something that we need to start taking note of for sure. I want to ask you, I had Alana Hadid on the show, and I had asked her what gives you hope, what keeps you, determined in your activism. And she said the people of Gaza give me hope. That's the guiding star. What gives you hope, and what gives the people in Gaza hope? And or I guess I should say, what keeps their faith alive?
What gives me hope is the past. We look at the past and we study all the similar things that happened in the past, and we know just justice will be served sooner or later. And I just pray to preserve as many Palestinian lives that we exist, us and our children and their children, to live in a just and a better world for us all. What gives me uh, excitement is how the Palestinians really refuse to be victims and work as hard and even deny they're living like a fish discovers water last. They know it's rigged. They know everything is against them. They know the world power and the dynamics, and they see the injustices not in Gaza but even beyond. But we're still able to think of us as Palestinians. Remember, there is more to Palestine than Gaza, and there's more to Gaza than aid. There are people who want to study and write music and compose and dance and make mistakes and sneak out of their house and meet their
Absolutely.
friends and all that stuff. We have to highlight those stories. And what from the U.S. side, I think the tide is turning in many ways, and people are seeing these things. They might be silent, but I assure you, a lot of people in this country are now okay with what's happening in Palestine. And next elections will show that we are people gonna show up in a way. I'm
Mhm.
hopeful, but I also know, the rules keep being written. Remember when the TikTok was a good place for us to post about Palestine? Not anymore. Then came along an amazing Palestinian programmer who wrote Upscrolled, and now it's a product that gives space to Palestinians. So we always have to stay on our toes, but also not just be like focused and like protesting, but not voting. Like, no, we have to vote, right? We
Right.
have to do it's all of the above. Go to your Capitol Hill congressperson, talk to them. I know they may have an Israeli flag, but they need to know the impact that they have on other people. And also give to political campaigns as much as you can. And, don't try to like change the system at the expense of the Palestinians in Gaza to make a point. Don't hit yourself against the wall and say, I'll show the other guy, they will feel the pain. No, we feel it. So the idea is for us to really, we know the options and we have to vote and just get people to support us. The Palestinians need help, they need love, they need care, they need space. I call my mom, I leave the phone and she's talking. 40 minutes later, like, yalla, yamma, and she's good. She feels good. She got it out. The more space you can give, the better. And there are people in Gaza who still keep their pride together. I know it seems like everybody in Gaza has a GoFundMe or has a something. There are people who actually refuse to be helped because they still want to be like, hey, I could make this. And I've seen those folks, and I love that they still exist despite the massive loss of life and tragedy around them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a testament to the Palestinian spirit for sure. So podcast is called Well Rooted. At the end of every episode, I ask the guest, what does being well rooted mean to you?
It's the commitment that Palestinians we have that we have to keep each other safe and we have to show up for one another. And not just what I do, but also in speaking out when we learn about Nukat Kurdiya still being held in an ICE prison. This is why we have to show up for each other. And also, if we are mistaken, we have to remind each other that we have to correct course. This is what it means. People don't, they may not know anybody in Gaza, but in Palestinian came around and like, hey, I want to help. they're being targeted because they're like me. We share a lot. And that's sort of like what keeps us alive as Palestinians, that we always try to look for our community because the cards are stacked against us, not just Gaza, Jerusalem, and the diaspora and the West Bank as well. But also, we have to really have that solidarity and translate it into meaningful action, not just like a slogan, not just like things that don't have a weight. Yes, these are important, but we have to make a difference on the ground in the life of a Palestinian in Gaza, whether that's delivering a water truck, a canister of baby formula, or telling their story or getting their voice in your own platform, like we're doing here.
100%. That was such a valuable conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I want to encourage people to donate to UNRWA USA during this month of Ramadan. As you mentioned, it is 100% zakat compliant. So 100% of the donation will go straight to Palestinians in Gaza. And people can also donate online to Gaza Soup Kitchen, correct?
Yes, follow us at the Gaza Soup Kitchen account. I promise you will see some content that color your life. Sometimes you will cry, but sometimes you will laugh, and just that's how life is. So you can go to gazasoupkitchen.org and UNRWA, make sure you go USA, UNRWAUSA.org. And if you want to do the zakat, just write zakat and it's there for you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to catch up with you, and I look forward to future conversations.
For sure. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Well Rooted. If you enjoyed today's episode and felt it brought you value, please subscribe, leave a comment, give us a like, and a review. This episode of Well Rooted has been brought to you by Gerard Associates CPAs. With locations across all of Los Angeles, Gerard Associates has been helping entrepreneurs and creatives make their dreams come true for over 2 decades. Go to gerardcpa.com to learn more. This is Hani, and we are all well rooted.